Hello, fight fans. Seattle Mike of MMA with Friends here.
And young David.
And we're going to talk about UFC 249 today. Khabib Nurmagomedov in Russia, as the UFC wants you to believe. I'm not so sure. And I have some supporting facts, I believe, that may point us in a direction that Khabib Nurmagomedov never left the United States. That he never went to Russia whatsoever. Now let me talk about these reasons. I've come up with this harebrained conspiracy, and I admit, 1-to-1 odds, I would not bet on this. But if someone were to give me 10-to-1 odds, if I was to give young David 10-to-1 odds on this, what do you think about my conspiracy? I've explained this to you, David, that Khabib Nurmagomedov never left the United States, and this whole thing is an April Fool's joke, possibly from the UFC. And David's reaction is, okay, I don't know where young David went. Anyways, I wouldn't bet someone straight up odds on this, but 10-to-1 odds if I was to bet $20 to young David, and I was to give him $20 cash if I'm wrong, and if he is wrong, he would have to give me $200 worth of housework. At 10-to-1 odds, would you take that bet up, David? What would you say if I offered you that bet?
Free $20.
Why?
Because you're crazy.
You don't think Khabib Nurmagomedov is in the United States. You think he's in Russia. Well, that's quite possible. That's what most people think. Somebody's going to end up a fool tomorrow. It's either going to be me or most of the media and everybody else. Let me explain to you how I came upon this conspiracy theory, because I was not even believing this myself yesterday until I started doing the stream and actually thinking about this as we were doing the stream yesterday, and as I started to point out the story. I just retold the story of Khabib Nurmagomedov's Instagram post, and some things just didn't sit right with me. So Khabib Nurmagomedov made this Instagram post. He's got a generic background. Does not show that he's in Russia. But his story is that the UFC told him 100% this fight's not going to happen in the States. And there's a 99% chance it's going to happen in the United Arab Emirates. So he asked the UFC, hey, is it a good idea for me to fly to the United Arab Emirates before this so I can get acclimated and I can get my training in motion and everything? The UFC says, sure. Dana White says, you have our blessing. This fight's been canceled 4 times, but it sounds like a great idea to take both fighters that are scheduled for this humongous fight for the 155-pound world champion, to split them up in different countries amid one of the craziest, epidemics in the last 100 years in the United States. Why not? So that was one little red flag for me. Another red flag was, you watch this video of Khabib Nurmagomedov. For one thing, he says he shows up in the United Emirates, that he couldn't remember exactly when he showed up. It was either the 19th or the 20th. That in itself, I could chalk that up to just, not remembering, and he's flustered about everything that's going on. Then he can't go back to the United States, so he says he goes to Russia. Then when he gets to Russia, they lock down Russia. Now he's stuck there.
To enforce the UFC's cover story, of course.
What was that?
They locked down in order to enforce the UFC's cover story, of course.
That's not what I'm saying. To back up Khabib's side of it, Russia actually did go on lockdown yesterday. So I thought they might have the fight there. There's only been 1,800 cases. There had been 1,800 cases before yesterday in Russia, which I don't want to minimize that, but very small, of course, compared to what we have going on here in the United States or even Washington State. I want to go back to Khabib's Instagram video, though, and I want to talk about something he does. He specifically addresses his number one training partner and very good friend, as you guys know, and UFC commentator, by the way, Daniel Cormier. He addresses him specifically and speaks to him. This is a guy that Daniel Cormier is in contact with consistently. Even if he's not in direct contact with him during this epidemic, I have a hard time believing that he would not be in contact with him on the on the phone or on Instagram or one of these things before he posts something to the entire world without telling his best friend. So why do I say Daniel Cormier didn't know, that he didn't talk to Daniel Cormier? Well, yesterday, later in the day, Daniel Cormier, co-host through this epidemic of the Ariel Helwani show, came on there, and Ariel Helwani explained the entire situation to Daniel Cormier as if Daniel Cormier had no idea what was going on. As if he did not know any of the story. Any of the story that even I had been told yesterday morning before it hit the press. From one of my sources. I talked about that yesterday on the live stream. So now we have to suspend the belief of Daniel Cormier having any idea of what's going on here. I'm not saying that Khabib is definitely not in Russia, but I'm saying there are a lot of fishy things with this story. And I want to make one more point before this is over, and that's the promotion of the UFC, or the shameless promotion at times of Dana White. Let's not forget, this is a guy who had no issue, or the UFC as a corporation had no issue looping Conor McGregor's video of him throwing a dolly through the window of a bus and criminally assaulting 10 other fighters and other people that were in there, got glass in their eyes, all kinds of other things. Let's just loop this thing like it's the greatest thing that ever happened. And then I want to point to Exhibit B. Just last year, just a year from tomorrow, on April Fool's, Tony Ferguson had tripped on a wire while he was wearing sunglasses and tore his LCL a week before the UFC told the media or anybody. They waited till April Fool's to put that out there. So we're all waiting for this to become the biggest April Fool's joke ever. And honestly, I don't know if I believed that the fight wasn't going on, that Tony was injured, until like April 4th. I was just waiting for them to say this is a really long April Fool's joke. Even though that's not the way April Fool's jokes work. So he did end up being injured. So you can see why I would think a year later maybe the UFC wants to pull this off. This would be the biggest April Fool's joke of all time. So a lot of people are going to be a fool tomorrow, or I'm going to be a fool for coming up with this harebrained scheme. But young David, do you take me up on my bet and give you 10-1 odds? I'll bet you $20 that Khabib Nurmagomedov never left Russia. The whole thing is fake, and that he is still inside the United States training at AKA. All right, $20.
$23
against $200 worth of house chores. And after young David loses this bet, maybe we'll make some videos of him doing these house chores. Maybe you guys could give me some ideas after tomorrow in the comments about maybe what young David should be doing after doubting his father, the great MMA reporter, Seattle Mike. No, just kidding. Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning into this video. I'm really dying to hear what your thoughts are on this. Put them down in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. As always, I love you. I respect you. Guys, stay home, stay well, and stay clean.